as a life, you've spent your time in search of wealth, gold, greed. Today we're about to find out just how deep your lust for wealth goes. The door behind you leads to the Mad King's Labyrinth, where untold riches lie. But as you see, the door is locked. The key has been surgically implanted into the skull of your Asura companion. Does your lust for wealth run deep enough to take the key and open the door? Do you have it in you to sacrifice your life to your greed? But you better think quickly. The room is slowly filling with poison gas, and if you don't make your move soon, you'll choke to death on your own inaction. You have about 90 seconds. Live or die. Make your choice.
Hey everyone, you got Mind Circus here with you for another Mind Over Meta build, and welcome to part 2 of a special edition of Mind Over Meta builds. And today I'm going to be looking at one of my favorite lab farming builds. We're going to be looking at Shortbow Thief. I have 2 of these builds. The other one should already be up on the channel if you want to take a look. But before we get into this one, hey, if you are new to the channel, new to Guild Wars 2 or just haven't done so yet, I am currently farming likes and subscribes in an effort to build the channel. And if you want to hit me up with one of those just below the video, that would be fantastic. So for those of you not in the know, lab farming refers to the Mad King's Labyrinth, which is one of the more popular activities when it comes to the annual Halloween event here in Guild Wars 2. And our basic idea is that we're going to be following around a tag on the map, just hitting all the trash mobs 1 or 2 at a time and contributing to the boss fights as best we can. And really, that's about it. So these builds are really meant to maximize your return and contribute pretty solidly to the boss fights. At the same time, I'm hoping they are as simple as possible. As you'll see, that these builds are really simple to play, and they are probably the most simple builds that you'll see me put up on the channel by far. They're meant to minimize some of the pain points in the lab in terms of the cripples and immobes, and this specific build does a really good job of that. And at the same time, they're meant to be a real simple, like, press 1 play style that I'm hoping will kind of just increase your efficiency and gold earning and make it just a really chill kind of experience. So, before I go on, please don't use these builds outside the lab. Super please. That's all I'm going to say. These builds are super suboptimal in terms of their damage, and really that's on purpose. The reality of lab farming is that damage really isn't the most important thing. Etiquette is far more important when you are in the lab, and we're really talking about just tagging enemies and letting everyone else get their hits in as well. One of the worst things you can do when it comes to this farm specifically is kind of show up on your full Zerker Dragon Hunter and lay down traps to alpha nuke all the trash mobs. It really just screws other people out of loot, and it's absolutely unnecessary. What you actually want to be doing is just kind of tagging mobs and contributing meaningfully during the boss fights, and I'm really hoping that these builds kind of do the job at that. These videos will absolutely be shorter than my usual build videos. We won't be getting into strengths and weaknesses. We won't be getting into extended gameplay demos or anything like that. I'm hoping to keep my rambling at a minimum, and the actual gameplay is going to be really brain dead simple, so we won't be going too far on that. And we will have fraction breaks, we will have crowd control demos, and really, that's about it. So let's get started with Shortbow Thief, which is probably my favorite lab farming build. So let's take a look at the build and the gear on this one for our Shortbow Thief. Absolutely one of my favorite lab farming builds. I'm a big fan of it, and it is one of the biggest PvE uses I actually get out of Thief on any given year. So let's get into it. When we pull it up here, we will take a look at our gear first, and our gear, I'm going to be running Knight's gear. I'm going to be running Knight's gear on my armor, and in my trinkets, I'm going to be running these as Marauders. This will give us a whole lot of toughness, a whole lot of vitality, and it will keep our precision nice and high. The reason for the precision we will get into in a moment. You'll also see that I'm running Scrapper runes in here. Now, the reason I'm running Scrapper runes is we will get a lot more toughness out of this and a damage reduction on foes within 600 units. So this is a pretty big win. I'm a big fan of this setup specifically. Our weapon here, you'll also see I'm also running this is a soldier's weapon. One of the few places I'll ever run as soldiers. And again, we're getting toughness, vitality, and power off that. In the armor, again, I'm running the Scrapper runes. In the Shortbow, I'm running an Energy Sigil and a Superior Sigil of Fire. The Superior Sigil of Fire is going to be a big value for us. The big value that we're getting off this is the Flame Blast that comes off. We're just going to be tagging more enemies with this. If you've ever used Shortbow on Thief, the really big wins that we get off this are the fact that our auto attack is going to bounce between enemies. So we're going to be hitting multiple enemies very easily with the Shortbow. It's one of the best weapons that you can use in the game for lab farming or for tagging in general. So I'm definitely going to recommend you use that. The Sigil of Fire will give us another AoE for more tagging effect, and the Sigil of Energy, we will get more endurance when we swap to this weapon while we are in combat. Now, we won't be swapping a whole lot. We are running a staff as well. You'll see that my staff is set up as Marauders with our typical force and strength sigils, and this is just a carryover from my usual PvE set. You could probably put another energy sigil in here and not lose a lot, but again, I'm not going to be spending much time in here. The only time I'm going to actually be using the staff when I'm in the lab is for staff 5 to get the mobility off that. So going back to the Shortbow itself, you'll see when I get into the combat section on this, we will be running around auto-attacking pretty much at all times, and then we will be using Infiltrator's Arrow a fair bit, and then I will get into the CC on this, where we're going to be using a bit of a combo on that. Taking a look at the builds here at this point, we will be running Acrobatics, we will be running Critical Strikes, we will be running Daredevil. I will say straight up that each one of these trait lines brings something really important to the party when it comes to lab farming, and I will kind of recommend that you stick with these 3 trait lines specifically. Let's get into first Acrobatics. Under Acrobatics, we are going to be running Instant Reflexes. Now, Instant Reflexes means we gain evasion when struck below the health threshold. This will give us a little bit more easy sustain. Really a bit of a no-brainer. Hard to catch is really important. Break stun and refill endurance when you are stunned, dazed, knockbacked, pulled, knocked down, sink, floated, launched, or inflicted with fear. Automatic stun break. Automatic stun break is going to be really, really good to have in the lab, so highly going to recommend we run with this one. But the main reason we're running this is don't stop. While you have swiftness, movement impairing conditions have reduced duration. When you gain swiftness, lose a movement impairing condition. One of the things in the lab that we want to really mitigate as much as possible are cripple and immobilize, and this is going to be a really big way that we kind of counteract these, so highly recommend don't stop. Under Critical Strikes, we have 2 things here that are going to bring us a massive amount of value. The first being Signets of Power. Signets of Power, we're going to be running the Signet of Malice. Now, Signet of Malice heals when you attack. This is a straight up bonus to our passive sustain. Big win there. We, in fact, don't want to be actually using our heal, but we're additionally going to be healing on kill. Now, that is really going to provide us the kind of sustain that we're looking for, particularly in the lab where we're dealing with a lot of trash mobs. Big win on this one. Highly recommend that we go with it. Practice Tolerance is taken because the other 2 options aren't bringing us a massive amount of value here. All right. Gain Ferocity when based on your precision. That's about it. We're just going to leave it at that. The other 2 options really not as big as a win. Finally, invigorating precision. This is a huge value to us, and what this does is again increases our passive sustain. So when you critically hit things, we will be healing a little bit based on those critical hits. It's the reason that we're running gear that keeps our precision fairly reasonable. So highly recommend invigorating precision. Finally, under Daredevil, Marauder's Resilience gain vitality based on a portion of your power. Damage is increased from foes within the range threshold. This again is just keeping us alive. The vitality is extra hit points. We obviously always love extra hit points. Havoc Specialist strike damage dealt increases based on endurance that is missing. Again, we're taking this one because the other two options here aren't huge. We're not going to be using the staff very much, so this is, Staff Master is not really our best bet here. Pulmonary Impact is, again, based on interrupts. We don't do a ton of interrupts on this build, so let's just stick with Havoc Specialist, do a little bit more damage. Finally, though, Unhindered Combatant. Your dodge ability is replaced by a long-range dash that removes inhibiting conditions, grants swiftness, and damage reduction. This is massive because, again, as I mentioned earlier, the things that we really want to mitigate most in terms of the enemies that we're fighting in the lab are going to be cripple, and they are going to be a mob, and this makes your dodge just deal with that. Additionally, what this does is gives us the ability to catch up, and as I've mentioned, and I'll show in the gameplay section, the absolute best place to be is at the head of the Zerg. You don't have to be taking down all the enemies, you just need to be tagging them, but there's a marked difference in the amount of enemies that you'll be tagging if you're at the head of the Zerg versus at the back. We never want to be there, and Unhindered Combatant is really going to be part of how we do that. So let's take a couple of minutes here and take a look at the bar and the way I've got the bar set up. Now, there are a few changes and a few different things you can do with this. In terms of the things that you always want to keep on the bar here, I'm going to recommend three things here. I'm going to recommend, obviously, Signet of Malice. Now, Signet of Malice, in terms of how we have the build set up, is going to give us heal when we attack. It's also going to give us heal on kill, thanks to our build. So it's going to generate a fair bit of passive sustain, and this is one that I'm going to say is non-negotiable. Another one that I think is non-negotiable is Prepare Pitfall, and Prepare Pitfall is a huge amount of CC. I will drop this on doors with the trash mobs and activate it when the mobs are ready to take their damage. It's a bit of a no-brainer. It's also a fair bit of CC against the bosses, so Prepare Pitfall is one that I'd absolutely definitely want to keep on that bar. Another one that is a little bit optional here is Prepare 1,000 Needles. Now, there's a few differences that you could use here. I might go with Prepare 1,000 Needles, use that on the doors, but since I'm not doing a ton of Condi damage, it's not huge in terms of its value, but it is a nice little AoE. Another one I might run here is right here, Roll for Initiative. Roll for Initiative is really nice. It'll also clear crippled, chilled, and immobilized, and as I mentioned, those are some of the things that we want to be mitigating pretty heavily in the lab. So one of those would be good here. I'm running Infiltrator Signet here. Regenerates 1 initiative for every foe killed, or sorry, for every few seconds. We'll also get initiative as we are killing trash mobs, so this is a really big value Signet. One of the other ones I might think about here is one of the other Signets. I might think about Signet of Shadows just for the 25% movement speed buff, but this build and specifically Thief in terms of the dodge giving us swiftness, in terms of Shortbow 5, in terms of the Staff 5, really doesn't lack for a lot of mobility, so it's kind of where you might want to stand on that. You might want to go with Shadow Refuge, but again, these are situational, and it's best to just pick the one that you want to go with here. That it's kind of one of those ones that is a bit immutable. If you're running into situations where you are wanting to do a little bit more CC, CC, I would go with Distracting Daggers on that. It's a pretty good CC skill with a very small cooldown, and it's very, very impactful. And as you see, it's an ammo skill, so we're actually going to get 3 casts of that on a pretty short order if we're looking to do a little bit more CC. But I'm going to stick with Infiltrator Signet on that. Finally, I'm going to go with Dagger Storm. Dagger Storm is a really quick way to tag a lot of mobs in a very short order. I don't think there's really a better elite to run on Shortbow Thief for the lab specifically than to run Dagger Storm. One of the other bonuses is it will increase our movement speed for a little while, and it is an evade for 3 seconds. So very powerful skill. I highly recommend that we run that. So fashion on this build, I kind of went all in on the Halloween aspect, so to speak, and came up with something that I was really happy with, so I thought I'd share this one with you. Going to be running the Bloodstained Lunatic Noble Mask. The Lunatic Noble Mask, and we can see this actually just gives her the blood on her mouth, which I absolutely love. The Lunatic Armor Set, big pro tip on this one is if you are in the mood to grind a little bit, you can get the recipes for all of these. These will give us stat selectable armor that we can craft all year long. You know, the skins, you know, are kind of hit and miss on them. They are really just recolors with a little bit of effects on some existing skins in the game. But again, you know, giving yourself the ability to craft stat selectable armor at a reasonable cost for the rest of the year, highly, highly recommend you get into that if you are into the build craft in this game at all. So that is a big win. We will be using the Racing Scarf. The Racing Scarf you may have seen me run before. This is something we will get via Beetle Racing. I'm going to be running the Funerary Jerkin, the Funerary Armor Set, easily found during your adventures in the desert. Really like kind of the way that comes together for the Halloween effect on this, so definitely going ahead and using that. Also using the Funerary Van Braces, again for the exact same reason. They just kind of do that Halloween thing really well, and I like those. Again, the Funerary Leggings, same kind of idea. I like the way that all came together in terms of the Halloween-y effect. And finally, the Elegy Boots. The Elegy Armor Set is gained in Jahai Bluffs. So there you go. The Requiem set, obviously, a little harder to do, but the Elegy Armor Set is actually really easy to collect, and highly recommend you get into those because they are some of the nicer armor skins in the game, and that's kind of the way it came together. Not going to pay much attention to the staff. I'm just using bow, but in terms of the short bow itself, I'm using Tigress. Tigress, one of the precursors to Chuka and Champawat. If you are using a character that uses shortbow a fair bit and you want a shortbow, legendary shortbow, I cannot recommend doing the Chuka and Champawat collection enough. And for my money, some of the absolute best content in the game. I absolutely love the whole journey of Chuka and Champawat, and you know, wish that most of the other legendary collections and journeys were as well put together as Chuka and Champawat were. Highly recommend you get into that. But that is Tigress, I think it's the 3rd tier precursor to the Chuka and Champawat bow, and I quite like the way that actually looked with this character. And that is our fashion. So the gameplay with this is, again, a pretty brain dead kind of style. We are absolutely just going to make sure that we are on the tag at all points. As we're going through, we're going to just make sure we are auto attacking. So we will get up on this door here. We might drop a pitfall or something like this, but really all we're going to worry about is just kind of tagging all the mobs as soon as possible, hitting 1 or 2. And that really is it. You know, we get an AoE off some of our short bow skills, but we're getting enough area pressure off that we really don't have to kind of concentrate on it too much. And you may see that somebody here has gone ahead and spawned the boss at the same time, but you know what? No big. We're just going to go ahead, do our Dagger Storm here. spread out a little bit more damage. Since we're not doing killer amounts of damage, we really don't have to worry about screwing other people over by, alpha nuking down the trash mobs. And we can just sit here and kind of do the chill auto attack against the door as those mobs come up. Dodge, we have so much dodge, we have so much mobility that we really just don't have to worry about it. And this is kind of a highly social thing, you can just put this on, hang out with your friends, and mindlessly press 1 while y'all get drunk together on Discord or something. And really, that is all there is to it. I don't want to put too much more, information behind it. Make sure that we are quickly on tag and hitting those trash mobs really quickly and doing our quick little hits, and then moving on to the rest. We obviously don't want to make sure that we're finishing off those mobs. We want to make sure that everybody else is getting their hits in, and we can obviously just double dodge forwards every once in a while and make sure that we're in the place that we need to be in terms of near the head of the head of the Zerg, because obviously the head of the Zerg is going to be where you're going to get the most hits in, because the mobs will still be alive, and more hits means more bags, and more bags means more loot, and more loot means more money. And it really is kind of that simple. I'm a big fan of this build when it comes to this kind of scenario, particularly when we're talking about making sure that we are just making sure that we're hitting the trash mobs, etc. We're always just kind of be able to hit those things as long as we're near the tag or the top of the mobs, or sorry, the top of the Zerg. We'll be doing what we need to do to get all this happening, and just pressing 1, moving on to the next one, making sure everybody else can get their hits in. And that really is it. So CC on this one, guys, is going to be super short. We don't have a ton of options on it, but there is a little bit of a trick that we can use to get a little bit more on it. We're going to start with the obvious. I am running Prepare Pitfall on this one, and Pitfall is going to be some nice CC. What we'll do is when the boss is up, we'll just drop that under him, scoot away for a couple of seconds. When that trap comes up, all we need to do is activate it, and that is a significant amount of CC, as you can see. So that's going to be our main source of crowd control on this build. As I said, it's not super useful for that. If I'm really worried about crowd control, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Dagger Storm out and put Basilisk Venom down there. Basilisk Venom is one of the most powerful CC skills in the game because it gives it to the people around you as well. So that's something to consider if you're looking for a little bit more CC, but Prepare Pitfall is one of the big ones. Shortbow 4 with the choking gas is going to be another one that we get it. And as you see, that's a little bit of CC there. Now, with the Shortbow, we actually have a combo that we can get a little bit more CC out of it. So we can go with the 4 and then the 2. So if we go 4 and then 2, we can hit that combo field, get a little bit of weakness off that, but really that is all that we're going to get for CC on this build. So keep that in mind. If you're really struggling for CC, put Basilisk Venom down here instead of Dagger Storm. Or conversely, what you could do is instead of running the staff in here, and the staff has a little bit of CC here, okay, because we got some cripple and weakness on the 3. All right. But really what we'll be taking a look at here, if I want to do more CC, is probably going with Dagger Pistol and using Pistol 4 there. That would be another option. But again, not real strong for the CC, more about the mobility and the lack of movement impairing effects on you. And really that is about it. So without getting too much further into it, that is my lab farming build for Shortbow Thief. I'm a really big fan of this one. It's an incredibly chill experience, and hopefully you guys are going to take that with you. Those of you who are Thief enjoyers and really struggling with its kind of limited options in PvE, particularly when it comes to the open world, can absolutely enjoy this one because probably the most effective lab farming build that I have. And that's really it. I'm going to leave it at that at this point, so to speak. Going to thank you all very much for watching. I'm going to remind you to have fun in game and min-max your real life. And we'll see you again in the mists.